Thank you for joining us. I'm here with Verity Bell from London. We both met each other at the training for the Oxygen Advantage. And, it was a great meeting her, and she reached out to me about some tongue questions, and we just made a great friendship connection. Now it's been, 6 months?
Yeah.
And I just want to find out from her how she's been doing with the Oxygen Advantage and being a woman and being a mother. And so take it away.
All right. Well, I've got a lot to say. Maybe I'll start with my journey, how I've got there. So when I got to Oxygen Advantage, I was in quite a bad state in terms there was a lot going on in my life. My mum had just died, and my dad had died a few years before that. And she had Parkinson's and dementia, so I had to care for her quite intensely. But I also had 2 young kids, and I was a yoga teacher. So my stress levels were very, very high, and I was having all sorts of symptoms, which just fatigue, body aches, heart palpitations, quite intense. They're quite scary. I'd just be sort of buttering a bit of bread for my daughter, and suddenly have this kind of and then the anxiety spirals from that. Breathlessness, walking upstairs, feeling very breathless, feeling like I couldn't take a deep breath. And being a yoga teacher, I really thought and was taught that taking a deep breath and breathing as much as I can would help it.
Yeah.
So throughout the day, and I think quite regularly, I'd say every sort of minute, I would sort of really kind of take a deep breath. And I didn't realize that was actually making it worse, because it's not taught as part of the yoga theory, the sort of biochemistry. I mean, I'm embarrassed to say I didn't really understand the biochemistry of the breath all those years that I was teaching it. So when I came to Oxygen Advantage, I had a Bolt score of 8 seconds. So I don't know, should I explain Bolt score, or I'll explain the Bolt score. So it's part of the Oxygen Advantage training to test people's breathing ability, which is so brilliant, because in the yoga training, that's not part of that. You just do the exercises and expect a result. And so the Bolt score is breathing in gently, breathing out gently, and then seeing how many seconds you can hold on the exhale. And ideally, you want for functional breathing right over 25 seconds. And mine was 8. But also, when I got to 8 seconds, I'd be flooded with anxiety. I felt like I was going to die. I feel like I couldn't breathe. So that just means I had very high sensitivity to carbon dioxide in the blood, which means I probably had very low carbon dioxide, which all these can lead to all these symptoms. And the other huge symptom I was having was with my cycle. So 2 weeks before my cycle, in the luteal phase, before the period, the second 2 weeks of the cycle, I just wasn't feeling myself. I'd feel out of control. I'd feel very angry, very irritated, very extra tired, extra achy. And so much so that I went to the doctors. I even had a hospital appointment about menopause. But I was 39 at that point, and they said, actually, your hormones are kind of borderline okay. So they just suggested antidepressants or go on the pill to monitor. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to just sort of discover a bit more for myself. And then, so when I did more testing, I was breathing 24 breaths a minute at rest. And
24?
Yeah.
Oh.
Normal at rest, for people out there who don't know, is sort of 8 to 12.
Yeah.
So I was chronically hyperventilating, which means I was breathing more than my metabolic need. I was also mouth breathing. I'd got into a bad habit there. I think because I was so anxious with everything that was going on, and I was hyperventilating, and it's like a vicious circle of sensitivity, of carbon dioxide, barometer sensitivity. I would want more breath. So you obviously feel like you should breathe through your mouth when you feel like you can't breathe. But actually, we know now from the Oxygen Advantage training that you take way more air in through your mouth. So my tidal volume, which means the amount of air I had in my lungs, was much bigger, plus 24 breaths a minute, plus these huge, big extra sighs throughout the day. Plus I would do a bit of Wim Hof or Kapalabhati when I had a moment, not caring for my parents or the kids, to try and get the breath. But I didn't realize that was making everything much worse.
You were just jacking yourself up.
Yeah.
Yeah. How was your sleep?
My sleep actually wasn't bad. I think I was so exhausted. Um, the fatigue of it all, I would
Yeah, yeah.
just be knocked out actually. So then
What's
I started mouth taping after my bolt score was up to 20, 25, which made a huge difference. The first week was quite tricky. I had a few moments of panicky, actually one moment of panickiness in the middle of the night. And then that was just easy. That because I think I had a practice of nose breathing before. It's just in these high levels of stress, I had gone into this kind of state of anxiety. But what is amazing is after doing all the training, from thinking that I was perimenopausal, that my hormones were wreaking havoc on me, the breathing, when I settled the breathing, and now I can get a bolt score of 30, 40 on a good day, is that symptoms have pretty much gone. I still have hormonal symptoms, as in, like, I'm still more tearful or more reactive, but there's a different sense of, like, I'm not overwhelmed, this feeling of, like, restlessness, not myself, like, out of control feeling that I think comes from the progesterone raising and the
yeah.
breath, you know. So I
Yeah,
think it's
that's
huge.
the sensitivity with the feeling you notice toward the latter part of your cycle still.
So I can feel there's a hormonal shift. Like, for example, I'm still miss my mom so much, and
Yeah, yeah.
if a song comes on, I'll cry more easily in my second half. But it's not like a kind of panicky, anxious, irritated uncertainty that I had before, which I think was to do with the breath.
Nice. And so then, in terms of the anxiety, and so then what do you notice? Do you actually can you sense your breathing change before you kind of get the anxiety that may take you in a direction you don't want to go?
It has to be a bit before that. So, being quite a busy mom, what I tend to do is I drop my kids at the local school every day and pick them up. So on the way back from dropping them off, I'll do my walking bolt score, 5 rounds,
Yeah.
and when I pick them up, I'll do the walking bolt score as well. And so I can. It's a really great way to monitor that throughout the month. And I noticed that it drops quite substantially to like 17, 18 from sort of 30 before as the progesterone
Wow.
rises
Okay.
in the second 2 weeks. So I have to prepare for that a few, but if you can keep the bolt score above 25, then you're buffered for the progesterone. So for those of the people that
Oh,
the progesterone is a breathing increases breathing. So if you're already hyperventilating and then the progesterone kicks in, it will increase your breathing and then lower the oxygen,
right.
increase the oxygen sensitivity, lower the carbon dioxide in the blood. So you need to prepare for it before. So that's why I've realized, like, I need to just practice a little bit before that luteal phase comes in, and then I can sense. And what you're saying is, I think that's true. Sometimes if I get complacent, I'm doing well right now, I can feel it creeping in a bit, and then I do my bolt score and be like, oh, I'm actually on 15 or something, but it comes back very quickly.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the Bolt score gives us so much, like what's really happening in the day. Like, what do we either have resourcefully, or in your case, like kind of knowing how things are going to be that last part of the cycle. I mean, I'm besides just getting out of bed and going, okay, how do I feel? Like, this is a real physiological measure for, like, okay, this is what I've got to do.
Yeah. And they've done studies. They haven't done enough studies on women's breathing, but they've done enough studies to know that the breath, the respiratory rate, is completely synced to hormones, and hormones to respiratory rate. So I think it's a huge untalked about way in to help women in this phase of their lives, and in pregnancy, because I had loads of symptoms in pregnancy. I fainted for the first time in my life. I had panic attack for the first time in my life, getting on a crowded tube when I was quite big. I was quite anxious. I was having migraines for the first time in my life. And when I look back, I was definitely hyperventilating. But also, there's the biomechanics of breath as well. I was definitely a front body breather. And with the baby there, I just couldn't get the breath into the back. So, it's just an idea, like, for pregnant women to maybe, prepare their bolt score, get the bolt score up as high as they can before the baby takes
Starts to
over.
get big, too big.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's a really great buffer, but also get the breath, learn how to get the breath into the
Right.
back before the baby comes, and then I think the pregnancy would be much easier.
Yeah. That would be. I mean, then what are your thoughts on like during pregnancy, working with some of the exercises with like
Well,
Patrick says some of these
yeah,
exercises aren't supposed to be done during
I
pregnancy, but
think
what would
really you
from your
should do it
experience what
before.
would you oh
Um,
before pregnancy.
so women who are like, actually, I'd really like to have a baby next year. Do the
Aha.
training then. Do the training then. Get your bolt score up to 40. Open your back, and then your body's like really ready for it. But I was quite, because it was so profound for me. I've also done research, a bit of research, my own research with friends and colleagues, but also online in certain Facebook groups with perimenopausal women. And this, when I put out there how many people feel breathless before their period, it's amazing how many women respond. I mean, one woman said she's been having it since she was 14 and she just feels that she can't breathe 2 weeks before her period. And she's got a way where she piles herself over cushions. It's the only way she feels she can take a breath in. Another woman said she's been to hospital many times, feeling like she can't breathe. And they've done lung scans and everything. They can't find anything wrong with her breath, but no one's tested how many breaths a minute she's taking, whether she's hyperventilating or whether she's got a really high CO2 sensitivity.
Yeah.
Um, uh, and there were just so many stories like that of women just saying, God, I walk up the stairs and I can't breathe, and then it creates an anxiety and then it makes you feel old. And then, all the psychosomatics, all the.
Right. Right. My mother, I started her with it, and she was having heart palpitations, like pre-ventricular, and a lot of them, like they sent her to an electrocardiologist to do the zap the little things that weren't working. So 2 days before that, we had started her on some very simple. She's like 77, so we started on some very just a simple breath hold, having her walk 5 paces. Her bolt score was 10. We went to the doctor's office and they did another EKG with the electrocardiologist. No PVCs. He's like, I don't know why they sent you, and she's just kind of looking at me because I went into the office with her. It's just
Miracle. Yeah,
it's just,
my,
it's
I mean,
interesting because I think physicians and clinicians know about hyperventilation. It's no mystery, but how they actually can ask the right questions and weave it in, it's just not covered. I mean, I even heard of dentistry that in the US, the ADA 5 years ago put out a mandate to all the dentists that you need to ask about obstructive airway and respiratory issues from the dentistry. And I asked my sweetheart, and she's like, "No, they never asked me anything about my breathing." So,
yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You go to the doctor, they never say, well, how many breaths a minute you're taking and what's your sensitivity. Yeah. I would love to sort of get the message out there because I think it would help a lot of women the way it helped me. You know,
no, I
it's
think
just
this is beautiful. I had some questions. Some women were asking, like, because I mean, with a bolt score of 8, starting the exercises that we were trained in can be a bit challenging in the beginning.
yeah,
So,
and actually
like,
that's
what was
really
your
key. That's
experience early on, and what made you go like, God, this is just way too hard. I'm just gonna quit, or I'm gonna keep going.
I just knew that something was wrong, and I just knew it was the breath. Actually, it just sort of intuitively knew. And I think that's why it's really worth doing it with an oxygen advantage certified practitioner, because if you're that level of sensitivity and you push yourself too quickly, it gave me heart palpitations. You have to really work really gently. So you have to have the right exercises, which are maybe the short breath holds to begin with.
Yep.
Work up 1 second at a time and really monitor where you are, because when I was like rushing to do it, it made things worse for a while until I had to be like, step back, just just get to 9 seconds, just get to
Right.
10, do four, just do it throughout the day, just do 5 seconds throughout, you know what I mean? Calm it down.
And what was it the small breath holds that you would do many times a day that started to really
Yes,
change?
yes.
Yeah.
And that's a brilliant exercise because it's not enough for the body to go into any anxiety, but you just slowly build up.
Yeah. And you found it easy to do that being a mom and all the responsibilities you had?
Yeah, because you can, they take a few seconds. You're often waiting as a mum, you're in a queue for something, or you're waiting at the school gates, or you're waiting for your kid to go to the toilet, or you're waiting for them to put their pajamas on, or you're waiting for them to brush their teeth. I just sort of would take those opportunities and do it throughout
Yeah.
the day whenever I could, even if it's just once or twice. I mean, the other thing I did was just breathing. So as I just lengthening my exhale and waiting a tiny bit longer with the pause at the end of the exhale throughout the day as well.
Yeah. I've seen that with my clients. Like, can we just extend the exhale 1 second? But what I found is like they want to feel like they're pushing a little more air. And I'm like, no, just go even when you don't feel air for 1 second or 1.5 seconds, and it changes things dramatically.
Mm. Yeah, that builds up over time. And when you're
Yeah.
hyperventilating, you do not do that. You breathe straight away between them. Yeah.
When did you start noticing a natural pause in your after your exhale?
I mean, it was quick. The transformation was quick. I would say the heart palpitations went away within 2 weeks of the exercises, and then the energy started to come back within. I think within a month, definitely within 6 weeks, I was completely different, in a completely different place.
And you
Yeah,
were
but
much less
as
reactive then too to your kids.
much less, yeah, totally. Everything just feels easier, and you don't have that dread of like, oh god, it's that time of the month, because you just, yeah, you welcome it almost. You can deal with the hormonal fluctuations without the breathing issues on top. And I've reluctantly got my put stuck on my tape on my husband's mouth. He had actually really great breathing, but he had allergies and nose issues. He was often quite blocked or sneezy, and they pretty much cleared up with the mouth taping at night. And then my kids wanted to join in. So my 9-year-old particularly gets quite excited and tends to talk like this. So we
Yeah.
talked a lot about breath, and she gets stuffy sometimes, but she comes to me now and says, "Oh, mommy, I feel like I'm breathing from my mouth at night. Can I put the tape on?" So, and she
Wow.
no, feels better, and she wants.
Wow. And how old are they?
She's 9, and the little one's 6. I think the little one's a bit too young, but also she seems to naturally nose breathe. When I go in to check them at night, she's always like sleeping, sort of like very restfully. But it's the older one that sort of tends to sometimes get a bit mouth breathy.
That's so awesome. I want to do something here in the valley with children, and I was talking with my sweetheart about it's really important to get the parents on board with this. Even just the reminder, they don't have to do the taping, but just a reminder of the mouth through the day.
Yeah,
And then, like, what happened, I love the story that, like, she started to see you guys changing and want to know what you're doing, or maybe she saw you taping your mouth before you went to, whatever that happened, but the interest, and she comes to you. That's just
yeah, yeah.
priceless.
Yeah, I mean, she sees all, she saw some of the training stuff. She sees some of the posts I put on Instagram. She's really enjoying it. But also, when I do, sometimes if I do my walking bolt score in the morning, they'll join in and do it with me.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
so they're already kind of
That's so great. Are they there now?
they're downstairs. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, no, I think, would you say also because kids are so sensitive to subtle things with parents that they started to see how you were coming more into yourself? They were like, wow.
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah.
Um, so did you have any big challenges in that 6 weeks? I mean, or were you having a fairly nice progressive change, or did you have a place where you're like, oh, I need to ask Patrick some questions, or you know?
I mean, not really. Like, there was a moment with the sleep tape on the first week I did it. I waited till my bolt score was up to 20 because that's what it should really be before you mouth tape.
Yeah,
Um, and even then, because I had got they had got quite stuffy and quite inflamed, I think, uh, that there were moments where I kind of would sort of rip it off in panic. I think there was
yeah,
one moment, but a couple of uncomfortable. I had restless night sleep for, I would say, 4 or 5 days, which does make you think, oh, is this the right thing to do? I'm not sleeping well. But then you kind of got to push through that. And now I just sleep. I don't need the tape, actually. Often I wake up and my lips are slightly kind of stuck together because I haven't opened them all night. But if I get a cold, if I get stuffy, then it starts to, then I have to tape. So it's just something
right.
that's there. And my
That's
husband's the
great.
same, sort of dips in and out with it. And then I think just the beginning part, because I was so anxious, just pushing it too quickly and trying to get my bolt score up, was like I was focusing on that rather than focusing on proper diaphragmatic breath and the cadence, and slowly building it up so that my nervous system was on board with it, rather than revving the nervous system up too quickly with
Yeah,
it.
I've seen that where it's like people are focused on the measure rather than, okay, let's just try and feel these things through the day, notice the dynamics, people out in the fields working or whatever. Like, yeah, the bolt score will be there. It's a great measure, but not, don't make that the performance measure to get better.
I mean, because there are loads of other factors that, drinking a strong coffee or having a really exciting thing coming in the future, just there's loads of things which do affect the volt score as well, isn't there? So,
Yeah.
yeah, you've got to be aware of that.
Do you have any recommendations for people to get started?
Yeah, I mean, look up Patrick's. There's loads of Patrick's videos online.
Are you
They
doing
come,
anything
yeah,
online?
they can come to me. I do online sessions, and you only need a couple, and then I send people videos and recordings of breath work, so then they've got it with them for a few weeks. But yeah, so people can come to me, and my Instagram, Verity's got the moves. There's loads of information on that as well.
Cool. That's great. One other question I had was, I know you're not past menopause, but do you have any insight for people, either with people you've worked with, or just knowing being a woman and what those transitions and I love that you thought your physician thought that you were moving into menopause, but you weren't. Like, what would you say to women in that transition time in terms of working with Oxygen Advantage?
I think it's hugely important, and that's what I really want to get into, because there's such a huge part of the population who suffer with these symptoms, and I think they can be massively reduced by doing this work. I
Yeah,
really, really believe that, and the people I've spoken to, and this sort of small research that I've done.
right.
I don't know about post menopause yet. That's what I haven't really done any research into that, but obviously, as I go through it myself, I'll probably know
Right.
more. The moment it's really kind of, but not just menopause, also women who suffer with really bad PMT from like 14 onwards, worth checking your breath. There might be other factors involved, but if it is your breath, it might reduce the symptoms by 50, 80%. Just don't know. It's
Right.
worth trying. Really doesn't take much to do.
Right. It's a pretty simple test. It's, I put up a little video on my website on how to test it, and people are getting it. They're questioning themselves. What have you found when people are like, well, I don't know if I'm doing it right, or you know, I mean, I give them all the instructions. The video is really well explained, but they just feel like, I'm getting people 7, 8, 9, 10 seconds, and I think they realize that that's not good, but they think they're not, it's all about them doing the test wrong. So,
Yeah, I think that's when they need to be one on one with somebody, even
yeah,
if it's fine or. But I agree. I've had some people that have been on sort of 7 and really high anxiety, but then sort of not wanted to go any further with it. I think you've got to be in the right place to shame, but yeah, to sort of do the exercises, haven't you? But again, they just don't take much time during the day. They really don't.
That's what. Yeah. I mean, what?
And you can do them anywhere. You can do them, you literally don't need anything. You can do them in the park, you can do them walk to the shop, you can do the walking one, especially. I think everyone walks somewhere at some point of the day, don't they? Just
Yeah.
do 5 walking breaths.
Yeah. And I love that you said like you're waiting on your kids, or there's always there's always like, okay, things aren't on time or whatever. Instead of picking up the phone, and there's always like, okay, things aren't
Yeah,
like just do
I
the
still do
thing.
that. But yeah. That's the awareness, like just keep reminding yourself, checking in. How am I breathing? Oh God, I'm really not on my diaphragm right now. I'm really,
Yeah.
really breathing too fast. I'm not pausing on the breath. And it's just those little, it's frequent, repetitive changing. That's the way you change the patterns, right? Frequently repeating them throughout the day.
Well, this has been awesome. Thank you. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Oh God, I think for now, I feel like I've said most of what I wanted to say. I mean, I'm always putting more stuff up on my Instagram, so maybe there'll be some more. If people want more of the science behind it, or some of the sort of past studies that have been done, they'll be coming up on Instagram. So, yeah.
Oh, I know. I had one more question, and this comes up a lot. Is let's say somebody has like a symptom like anxiety. Have you found that just by doing the exercises that actually diminished the anxiety? It wasn't like, oh, I'm getting an anxious moment, let me do my breath holds to try and get out of it. It was more that the long-term effect of the practice started to give you something else.
Yeah, I don't think it works in the moment. It's a bit like meditation. It's the same thing. You can't suddenly, in a moment of anxiety, meditate in that moment, can you? I think I think it's a long-term thing, and so you like same in meditation. You do it for when you need it later in the future. I think that's the same with this breathing. You get your body in a really resilient, your breath in a really resilient state, so that you can deal with what life throws at you, which it will throw stuff at you, and that's, I think. So no, I can't. I mean, maybe it does. Maybe some of the, the ones, these ones when you're having
Oh
a
yeah.
panic attack,
Yep. Well,
potentially, but I haven't been in that, haven't been that panicky, so I can't speak for that. But all I know from my experience is do it, get your breath resilient, and then you'll be in a better place to deal with the stuff that
yeah.
comes up.
Can you explain a little bit about that resilience? Because I mean, I can talk about vagus nerve and go way off on that, but what is it for you that that resilience? What is that for you?
I think it's a bit of the vagal nerve. You're improving the vagal nerve term. You're improving with the cadence of the breath, which is, for those who don't know, it's like that equal breath, which I wasn't
You feel
doing.
more grounded, more settled in your being?
Yes, I
Would
just
that
feel
be?
less reactive. I feel less nervy. My nervous system has basically come down to a nice sort of parasympathetic balance. I mean, okay, I still get my moments, but I think it's really. I feel like it's really down to like that chemo. I think there's something really in the chemosensitivity, the Bolt score for me, that really, if your chemosensitivity is resilient, then it feels like a lot of your sensitivity is resilient.
I agree with that. That's like you're less reactive. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to check. I've seen there a few comments on Facebook. You want me to check real quick and see?
Yeah, yeah.
I have to use a different thing here. Let me see. All right. Yeah. So you answered the question. What specific exercise do you do in preparation for and during your cycle, during your period time? So like the last week.
Yeah, I have posted this actually on my Instagram, but so in the follicular phase, so the first 2 weeks, in the first week when you've actually got your period, I tend to do a lot of cadence and diaphragmatic breath. So that's really practicing getting the biomechanical breath here, but also the cadence of the rhythms, because you're often, you're feeling a bit heavy and you're feeling a bit tired.
Yeah.
But then when that goes, that's when, if your Bolt score's good, that's when you can play with Wim Hof and all those kind of methods. But also that's when you can challenge yourself with more of the oxygen advantage altitude training, maybe, the breath holds and the walking breath holds and things like that. And that's then helps you. That's when I do my sort of bulk of the training. So then when the progesterone comes in on the later two weeks of the luteal stage, and then the breathing increases, I kind of don't really notice it so much anymore. So I think that's when it's done. That's when the work is done, in the sort of second week, really.
Even before. Yeah.
Yeah, the week
also
before.
because it's all about Apana, the downward wind. Everything's leaving the body. So I think having that little longer exhale. Yeah.
The
Cool.
longer exhales, the longer, and the longer pause at the end of the exhale, and the cadence breathing during when you're eating, and then you can start to have more of the exploring the longer breath holds. Yeah.
So Laurie was asking, can you explain a small breath hold?
As in the sequence of the breath hold, the small
Just
breath hold.
what is a small breath hold? There may be a lot of people that don't know what we are using language for the small breath hold.
Yeah. So usually it's at sitting, so you're at rest already, and then you breathe in normally. So you're not taking a huge inhale and you're not taking a huge exhale, just a normal gentle breath in, gentle breath out. And then at the end of the exhale, you're holding. And so at the beginning, when I had huge anxiety and I only could do it for 8 seconds without panicking, I would just do it for 2 seconds or 3 seconds until I could feel my body, and just doing that throughout the day. Or Patrick's one is, I think, doing 5, isn't it? 5 rounds of holding for 5 seconds.
No, for the small breath holds, we do like 3 to 5 minutes.
3 to 5 minutes. Okay. Yeah. I think as a mom, busy mom, I wouldn't ever do it for that long. I would take it.
Yeah. Just like even 30 seconds of maybe 3 or 4 cycles.
Yeah, and then you're boiling the kettle and you're like, I'll just do a couple of cycles, and then you're waiting for the potatoes to boil, and I'll do a few seconds, and you know what I mean? When you're doing your emails, you might do a few, because I do notice when I'm concentrating, I've got an old pattern of holding my breath, but I do it at the top of the exhale. So now I'm trying to train myself to do it at the top of the inhale, bottom of the exhale.
Okay, cool. Let me see what else we got. Let me see what else we got. Oh, someone else just commented on what a small breath hold was. They must have been watching and answered Laura's question.
Great.
Cool. Well, this
was
awesome.
This is great. It really did.
Yeah, I really appreciate you jumping on and just having your experience from a woman. And I'm doing another talk on Monday night with a pelvic health specialist, and so she's going to me about how the breath affects the pelvic health. And so, do you have anything you want to fill me with that?
Sure. I mean, I've
what have you noticed? Any changes in function of the pelvic floor with your bladder, any of that kind of thing?
Yeah. I mean, this is a whole other conversation, but yeah, I've been doing a lot of work on this recently, and it's the diaphragm. Using the diaphragm properly. If you've got a functional diaphragm, then you've got a functional pelvic floor.
Right.
And I wasn't using my diaphragm properly. I was very rib flared, and I was using just the front of the diaphragm, and the back of the diaphragm was very closed. I had a bit of a sort of a left AIC pattern. There's all these, the right diaphragm and the left diaphragm was slightly off. And that will obviously affect the pelvic floor, because they should move together. So on an inhale, they move down, and on an exhale, they move up. But I think what happened, having 2 children, there was quite a lot of fear and tension there. And I've been told that, you should do the Kegels, you should lift, you should grip. So this was often gripped, which means this was stuck as well, right?
Right,
and this was weak because it was so tight, because I was kind of gripping whenever I thought I needed it. So I had to retrain myself to relax and let it really breathe and open up, and then to find that full deep exhale, which I wasn't doing. I don't think anyone does if they're hyperventilating or they're exhaling, is they don't do a full proper exhale. So then when you do a full proper exhale and you really get that diaphragm to dome right up, it then pulls this up and tones it massively. And then it's, muscles need to lengthen before they contract properly.
Right.
And I
Yeah, if
it
they're
was
always
stuck.
tight, they're not functioning.
Yeah, it was just stuck in between. It couldn't do either.
Wow.
So you need to train both of them together, really. I think as women, and the other thing I think I mentioned to you is the whole episiotomy thing, which is a whole nother
Oh
discussion. I don't know if I want to go into, but
yeah.
that massively affects that deep fascial front line, and that whole connection between, whatever side they did it on is going to affect that side of your diaphragm. So, it's a whole deep dive into that, but
Right.
that's fascinating. I'll have to watch that with you.
Well, we could do something else on that. That'd be beautiful, and because there is that whole functional relationship to what they're both diaphragms. So that whole functional
And I think what a lot of women do is on the exhale, they push down. That's what I found I was doing a bit, and I wonder if that's something to do with giving birth and getting out of sync, or I don't know what it is, but fully exhale to sort of grip and push down rather than
so kind of a
let.
bearing.
Yeah,
Wow.
instead of letting that and really finding that deep, you've really got to get those core abdominals back working, all of the whole thing to suck in and up. And I was sort of, it was tight, it was restricted. So I think maybe the tightness and the restriction means you bear down a bit to support the breath. I'm not quite sure yet. I'm still kind of playing with that, but yeah. That's
Well, in the fitness world, everyone's binding their abdomen already, so maybe that's part of it. Like they're already tight and they're trying to look for more of an exhale, so they're bearing more instead of
yeah,
relaxing the belly.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that could be a whole other.
yeah.
Let me double check one more time here and see. Oh, it looks like. Let me double check one more time here. No, that looks like that's really good. People are really excited. So,
Great, amazing. Okay.
any last
Well,
words?
thank you so much for this. It's just great. I love talking about this stuff. So it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah, this
great.
has changed my life. So I'm so excited to hear from fellow classmates how it's going.
I mean, you did a lot of breathing before, right? So you feel like this has been
Yeah.
massively transformational for you as well, this particular
Oh
training.
man, it was, the physiology piece for me was just big. I'm working into like altitude stuff now, and but working with my dear friend Scott Blossom, I took him through the case studies, and he's a very adept yoga practitioner, and he was blown away. And so he's starting to. We're going to work together on some things, but he's like, even with Uddiyana Bandha, we are always teaching it navel back to the spine instead of being pulled up. But what he's also discovering with the bolt scores with people is that if there's any change, irregularity, gasping, that sort of guttural as you come out of Uddiyana, it's got to stop because it's just disturbing the breathing, and you're holding it too long. So it's all about that, controlled exhale.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating. He was blown away, and he has said too that the measure with the bolt score in the morning really gives him an insight into what he has for the day.
Yeah. It's a really wonderful tool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. Cool.
Brilliant.
All right.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
good
you.
your
Have a
daytime
great
now.
evening.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.